Have you noticed that much of what we see in the sales world today is antisocial? Pitch slaps, false compliments, inauthenticity, and sometimes outright disinformation? Welcome to the All Selling is Social podcast, where we look at ways that we can be social in our selling efforts, no matter how we're reaching out. Each week, we talk to top sales leaders and trainers to learn what's working for them, how we can learn to talk with people, not talk at them. Join your host, Bill McCormick, and let's develop a sales game that feels as good as it works. Let's get social.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the All Selling is Social podcast with our very first interview with my friend Larry Levine. So let me just set this up for you because it doesn't sound like a podcast. I was doing a training series called the Social Selling Compass, which is a video training course I have on my training website. And I asked Larry to come in and talk a little bit about why trust matters in the sales cycle. And so this is a recording of that conversation we had. I promise you're going to get tons out of it. Watch for the end of the clip. And after that, we'll throw in the comments a little bit about Larry, about where to find his books, about where to check out his podcast, Selling from the Heart, which got me on this crazy journey that I'm on now, as well as the things that are happening with him and how to find him and follow him on LinkedIn. I promise you, you're going to love this conversation. So let's jump over and join me as I talk to my friend, Larry Levine. All right. Hey, welcome everyone to this session on conversations with my good friend, Larry Levine. We've known each other for 4 years. We were just talking before we got recording. And the first time we met was 4 years ago this month. We're recording this in November 2024. And man, it is so great to see you. Thanks so much for joining me here and talking with my audience about having conversations.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. I've been looking forward to this. I can't believe it's been 4 years. This is why we're going to have a great time. But this just proves out nothing in life happens without having a conversation, because you and I connected through a mutual friend, but it was through conversation that allowed our relationship to flourish to where it is today.
Yeah, absolutely. And has led to many more conversations, right? Later on in this video series, everyone's going to hear from Aaron Hezekostas. I don't meet Aaron if I don't meet Larry. And so that's how it works. And that's what we're going to talk about. But before we get into the nitty gritty, on the Selling from the Heart podcast, and let me just give a background for Larry. All right. So Larry is the author of Selling from the Heart. He's also author of Selling a Post-Trust World, and is the co-host of the Selling from the Heart podcast, the founder of the Selling from the Heart movement. And if you don't know anything about that, you need to check it out. Check Larry out on LinkedIn. We'll talk towards the end about how you can connect more and find out more about Larry. But on the Selling from the Heart podcast, one of the things you always ask is, hey, what's your backstory? So why don't you tell everyone really quickly the Larry Levine backstory?
Okay, this is going to be the Reader's Digest version of, and it's probably going to be the quickest backstory I've ever told. But I spent 30. Oh, you can time me, Bill. So I spent almost 30 years in the Office Technology channel. I'm a sales geek at heart. I sold probably one of the most highly commoditized things you could possibly ever sell: copy machines. Highly dysfunctional, very laggard in nature. But how I really survived and thrived in that arena was I learned how to smash relationships and process together. I put relationships on the forefront because I know the more that I invested in relationships, the more I'd collect from those relationships. And I turn that into what I call sales sustainability. I turn that into longevity, which then as I exited that channel, I had to find something else to do. And that something else to do was to take all this collective knowledge that I accumulated and pass that on to the sales world, because I believe success happens when I contribute to a greater cause. And that's what I'm doing here at Selling from the Heart. It's my commitment to raise the sales profession based on all the things that I wish would have happened to me decades ago through coaches and trainers. It's just my opportunity to give back and share with people why building relationships, why building trust, why bringing your authentic self to the forefront will help you bridge relational gaps It ties into increased revenue, it ties into profitability, it ties into just a massively fulfilling career if that career happens to be in sales.
Fantastic. That was less than 2 minutes. So you should, I'll send you the transcript. You can kind of
Please do.
memorize that when you need it,
Please
when you
do.
need it. So, and listen, for everyone watching and listening, however you're consuming this, here's something I can tell you. Everything we're going to talk about is something Larry does on a regular basis. I had the pleasure of working with Larry and working and selling from the heart for a while. We were on client calls, and what he teaches is what he does. I know many, I shouldn't say many, but I do know some trainers that they say one thing, but they do another. It's kind of like my parents, like when they would teach me to drive, they would say, do as I say, not as I do, right? Because I see them drive a certain way. I'm like, wait, you told me not to do that. Shh, do as I say, not as I do. That's not Larry Levine. Larry Levine practiced what he preaches, and he really is so good at it. So before we jump into the trust equation, because that's really where I want to focus, I do want to take just a few moments and talk about selling from the heart, the book and the movement, and because that's really the foundation, right? I mean, that really sets people up for building relationships. So if you could give us a synopsis of the Selling from the Heart movement, the Selling from the Heart book, like what is so important about getting our heart right, and how does that help us in sales?
So this is interesting. And Bill, I mean, you've known me now 4 years, but it feels like it's longer. But
It sure does.
and the reason why I bring this up, because you and I have gotten into some deep conversations about this. When I wrote the book and we started the podcast, I had no idea what to expect. In fact, when I wrote Selling from the Heart, I didn't know if I would sell 50 books and they'd all be pity buys. But I poured my heart into this book for the simple reason is it's hard to go out there into the sales world, into the marketplace, into the community, into the business world if your heart is not straight, if you don't know who you are. And I can say this with conviction is I had to figure this out the hard way because I would mirror and I would mimic everybody else who I thought along the way was successful, who had their stuff straight and so forth. But what I soon realized is that wasn't me.
Mm-hmm.
Until I had to open up the cupboard, right? I use that analogy a lot because like opening
Right.
up a kitchen cupboard or opening up a drawer. I had to open up who I was, get really vulnerable with who I was, come to grips with who I was, that I'm just a
Yeah.
deeply compassionate, caring, loving guy who loves connecting, loves relating, loves everything about sales. But how you smash all this together is by getting to know yourself, still having some boundaries, but
Mm-hmm.
then helping somebody go, you know what? I'm really here to help you. I care about you. The light's shining on you. I'm just here to be the tour guide. But
Mm.
selling from the heart, you can't sell from the heart if your heart's not right. And that's the
Right.
whole premise around selling from the heart is you got to deeply connect to who you are because you can't go out in the sales world and sell from the heart if your heart's all jacked up and you don't know what's inside you, because sooner or later you get called out. And that's why the last chapter of the book is all about not being an empty suit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think in the sales world, like I know in my, many years ago when I started out, I was told to emulate people, and they weren't good people. They didn't do good things, and so their heart wasn't right. And so I ended up kind of copying them. And first of all, it didn't work because it wasn't
Yeah.
genuine. It wasn't authentic. It was taking advantage of people. It's all the bad things we know about sales. But the second thing is it wasn't me. And so I was trying to be somebody I wasn't. And so automatically I was off kilter. So I think it's so important. So if you're watching this and you haven't read Selling from the Heart, the book, we're going to give you some information on how you can get that. But then after that, you wrote Selling in a Post-Trust World and the Trust Equation, which I've become so enamored with and have talked about it through this video series and have used it. I mean, I'm a beneficiary, right? Yeah, I'm a beneficiary of it. So talk us through the trust equation, and we'll take the moments we have left to kind of break down, especially the two important parts that I want to talk
Sure.
about. But tell everyone a little bit about what the trust equation is.
Actually the trust equation, and I don't even know if you know this or not yet, Bill, but the whole trust equation was built out of a mirror moment I had with my business coach and his mentor when we got the cold glass of water thrown in our face because my co-host Daryl Amy on the Selling from the Heart podcast was actually in that conversation when we were asked, how can you look somebody in the eye, an executive, a sales leader who's running a sales team, and say, if you implement selling from the heart, this will help you increase revenue and profits? How can you look somebody in the eye? What's the whole core premise? What is all of this going to do? And right then and there, I said, well, it's going to help people build trust and credibility. Then we were challenged, and I was challenged and said, you got to figure this out. You got to figure out how to take selling from the heart, look somebody in the eye and say, if you implement this, this will build trust and credibility based on what?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to work. Daryl and I whiteboarded this out, and we whiteboarded out that the foundation selling from the heart, but how you get there is by the trust formula. Trust formula is really simple. It's about building authentic relationships and combining that with meaningful value. It's AR plus MV. We call those two sides of the trust coin. Well, the multiplier or the force multipliers on this are inspirational experiences and disciplined habits. Those four things.
Mm-hmm.
And since not only the books come out, but before the book came out, we were coaching to it. I've seen people's lives transform. I've seen sales careers transform by implementing those four simple things. There's nothing that's rocket science that I do here, but it's all simple things done with discipline, and they will transform your life and your career. But the two most important ones are you got to understand how to build genuine, authentic relationships, which is the who you know part of this. And you got to combine it with meaningful value, which is the what you know part of this. If you can do those two things, you're well on your way of building trust.
It's who you know and it's what you know.
Yep.
So this is great. And I'm one of those people. I implemented this, and I implement this in my daily life. And it goes beyond my sales career. It just goes into normal life. When I'm dealing with people, I'm trying to always develop authentic relationships, and I'm always seeing how can I provide value in this situation. So we're talking about starting conversations, and the training that we're talking about is part of LinkedIn training, social training. And so what I say is, we need, in the conversations part, we need to take the conversation from the digital space to the face-to-face. And when I say face-to-face, that can be a phone call, it can be a Zoom meeting like this here, it can be in person, but it's got to be, I can't think of the word, synchronistic conversation, right? So that happens together. And so what do you think right now are some of the biggest mistakes that you see salespeople make when they're trying to build authentic relationships and kind of take that conversation from the digital space to the face to face?
I'm just going to say it. I think they overthink this, and we live in this. Again, I feel the gurus and all the LinkedIn influencers have played a lot to do with this. And again, I'm not casting any ill will, dark shadows, disrespect to anyone. But I think what's happened over time is we've lost our ability to really think for ourselves. And here's where I'm going with this. The way you interact face to face with somebody, I'm going to prove this out. The way you all think online is completely different than, I bet you, the way you think face to face.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I say is we do things digitally. We do things in the digital space that we would never do if we were standing face to face with someone.
100%. So the reason why I'm saying this is the way I carry myself face to face is exactly the same way I carry myself online. The asks that I make online are the same asks I make face to face.
Yeah.
And so when I'm connecting to somebody, we'll just use the connection part of this if you allow me.
Hmm.
So when I'm
Yeah.
connecting to somebody, I'm asking them to connect because I look forward to, I like meet and I'm going to do the sales part of this. I'm going to do my author hat part of this.
Hmm. Hmm.
When I was in sales, I never overthought it. I never was out there researching 10 pieces of things to use then to connect to somebody. It was simple. I just said, hey, I enjoy connecting to like-minded professionals. I look forward to connecting with people in the marketplace who are doing great things. Would you be
So simple.
open-minded to connecting? That was it. That was
Hmm.
simple stuff. I was doing that in the sales world, selling copiers, and it was working well past 90% of the time. And
Wow.
then my simple response back was, if they accepted, hey, thanks for accepting my connection request. At a certain point in time, I look forward to getting to know you. In the meantime, welcome to my network. It was simple as that.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
never
Yeah.
overthought it. I never overanalyzed it. I just welcomed him into my network. Well, now that I got my author's hat on and selling from the heart and things like that, I can open up conversations fairly easily, but it's the same thing. If I'm
Yeah.
connecting to CEOs of companies, hey, I look forward to connecting to like-minded executives like yourself. It's been awesome building and, integrating selling from the heart out into the business world. Totally up to you. Would you mind connecting? That's it. End of story. I don't overthink this at all, none whatsoever. And one or two things are going to happen. They're going to accept or they're not going to accept.
Hmm.
And if they don't accept, it's no big deal. I detach from it. If they accept, then right away, I just reply back. Hey, so good you connected me. Right on,
Hmm.
Bill. Thank you for
Yeah.
accepting my, invite. I appreciate you. Here to be a resource. Curious. How may I be of value and service to you?
To you.
All the best, Larry. Boom. That's it.
Hmm. Yeah.
This
And
is because this is all, I mean, it's not rocket science. I'm not pulling 10K reports and all of this, though it's important. I'm not using any of this. Here's a simple reason. Perception's reality.
mhm.
We all know where trust is at. If I do this, the first thing that I know that person is going to think about is, did they really dive in deep, or did they just pull out some surface level stuff to use to connect to me?
Yeah, and that surface level stuff. So I call that false platitude. There's so much of that now. Like, love what you're doing at, and they copy and paste, or they've scraped my company name, and my company name is Digisales, and then it's all selling is social in parentheses. So when I get that all together, I know they just scraped that information, and I'll come back and say, I bet you. So I get a lot for coaches because it says somewhere on my profile coach. So when
Sure.
they do a search, I come up. And so, and I'll reply back, I bet you say that to all the coaches, because they do. It's not sincere. It's not genuine. When if they would have just looked at my profile and said, or even just something as simple as, hey, I enjoy connecting with like-minded people. Great. I'm gonna go there. But when you start out with this, I need you as my client, then it becomes all about me, and that just doesn't work. So I think that's you. So but before we move on to meaningful value, what's one tip that you would give for taking a conversation from the digital space to the face to face? So we've already talked about keeping it simple. That's one thing. Is there anything else that you can, because you're a master at this, of connecting with people and then really connecting, right? So there's the physical act on LinkedIn of sending a connection request and connecting, but then there's connecting, right? And you're so good at this. So what's one tip that you could give the listeners for doing that, for going from the digital space to the face to face?
Again, I'm going to go back to this. And we all have, right? This is just a way. It's not the way, right? There's 1,000 different people with 1,000 different ideas on how you can do this. And I'm not here to say one's better than the other. This just happens to work for me. I'll give you what works well for me. I did this in the sales world. I do it today. It's as simple as this. I'm curious. I'm curious, would you be open-minded at some point in time to some ideas and some insights that could possibly help you to increase? And then I fill the blank in with based on their industry or their role or something like that. I'm curious, would you be open-minded to some ideas and some insights at some point in time?
So what I love about that is that it takes all the pressure off.
I'm just saying,
Right?
you know what? I'm not looking for it for tomorrow. I'm not
Right.
looking for it next week. At some point in time, I'm curious, gets them thinking. Would you be open-minded to some ideas and some insights at some point in time? And then if they get back to me, right, that's conversation. That's just like I'm having a conversation with somebody face to face. And, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I get ghosted. Sometimes they say, hey, you know what? I really would love to get back in touch with you. I said, terrific.
Yeah.
Why don't you let me know what actually works for you and we'll make it happen? Not here's my Calendly link. How's next week? No, you please tell me what works for you based on your schedule.
Yeah, and we're the same age. We kind of grew up in sales at the same time. And back in the day, it was you give them times. You got to give them times. You got to secure that appointment. You got to and so many people are coming with that, and it's just like, wait, if people don't have time for that. They have enough pressure in their life every day from their bosses, from their spouses, from their family, from problem. Like I love what you do. It just takes the pressure off.
Absolutely. And it goes back to the word comfortable. I just want them to feel comfortable with me. This was probably a couple weeks ago. I connected with somebody on LinkedIn. And my response back was just what I shared. So good to connect with you. Look forward to get to know you. Thank you for accepting this. I appreciate you. Here to be a resource if you ever need it. Curious, how may it be of service and value to you? All the best, Larry. This person got back to me and goes, what just happened? You completely took me off guard because I wasn't expecting this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm right. The light's not about me. I'm not shining it on me saying, hey, I spent 5 minutes and I found out 5 things about you and all that. Okay, that might work. And some people coach to it. I just want to make somebody feel comfortable with me by the words and the messaging that I use. I take all the discomfort away and I just say, hey, you know what? If you want to have a conversation, great. If not, I just want to let you know I'm here to be a resource. But I got some ideas and insights that could possibly help you. But I tell you what, when the timing's right, the timing's right. How's that work?
That's amazing. And that word help, we throw that around. And so oftentimes when we say we want to help someone, what many salespeople are saying is they want to help them sign a contract so that they can help them make some more money. It's not, let me just help you. Let me just show you. So I had a guy look at my profile a couple of weeks ago, and we had connected in the promotional products world in 2017 or 18.
Yeah.
And I just reached out. I said, hey, great to see you. Notice you looked at my profile. Let me know if I can help with anything. Oh, well, I'm looking to use LinkedIn more. We had a conversation, shared some insights. I just spoke to his team, and that's what it is. And listen, I'm not looking for anything. I'm just being a resource so that they can see the value that's there. And then they get to determine whether or not it's taken to the next step. So let's talk for a few minutes about meaningful value, but I'm going to have you back on because
I'd be honored. Thank you.
Yeah. So now the next step is we meet with them. and now we're going to help them. We're going to give some insights. We're going to provide some value. That's where the meaningful value part comes in. And you know, one of the things you write about in the book, Selling in a Post-Trust World, is about reactive and proactive conversations. What's the difference there?
I mean, obviously, well, too, I'll just look at it this way. Proactive is you're going on the offense. Reactive, you're going on the defense. When I think about engaging in proactive conversations, hey, by the way, I just want everyone to know conversations require practice.
Yeah, definitely.
The art of conversation requires practice.
Mm-hmm.
Something that a lot of people struggle with. They get reactive. They ask the same sets of questions and they just react to the moment. Now, I want to walk into conversations and I want to be proactive. Now, I'm going to upset the apple cart when I say this. That's okay. I'm not one for small chitty chatter rapport. I believe that comes later. In a busy executive's mind, I want everyone to hear me out on this because this ties directly into meaningful value, is when you ask for somebody's time, their valuable time. Why the heck, right? Again, I don't care if it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever you would ask them to commit to. And you open up your conversations with small chitty chatter conversation because you're worried about being liked and how you're perceived and trying to find something to make them feel comfortable. You have wasted their time because that's what everybody else is doing. And before you know it, 8, 9, 10 minutes go in and you're going, this person's going, when are they going to get down to business? They asked for 15 minutes of my time. You've eroded it. So I'm not here to discredit it. There's a point in time where that comes into play. So the meaningful value part of this is I want everyone to be proactive in how they open up conversations. It could be something as simple as this. Bill, I'm super grateful for our time together this morning. I've been looking forward to the next 30 minutes since we calendared it 2 weeks ago. But as we start our time together here this morning, I got into thinking about our conversation. And in working with people just like you and working with executives just like you, over the last couple of weeks, we've been getting into some really terrific conversations around this issue, and this issue. So as we kick off our time together here this morning, I'm just going to ask you to put your thinking cap on. Out of the issues that I just shared, the conversations I'm having with people just like you, what hits home with you the most? And I stop.
Yeah. And you practice silence really, really well. Most salespeople don't. So what's interesting there is you talk about having conversations around meaningful value with clients, right? With satisfied clients, and then bringing that into the prospecting process. So, right. So that's where you're finding your meaningful value are with conversations with your current clients. And then that's where you're bringing that into with a prospect.
Yeah, 100%. And meaningful value, the underlying thing is what you know. Right. It's not right. It's not what you know about your product. That's important. It's what you know about the business world that can help those people become better. I don't want you as a and this is sales centric for a moment. I don't want you as a salesperson to align your value around your products to try to align to the thoughts of that busy executive. I want you to align your business smarts based on the issues, challenges, dreams, visions that you've been helping your clients achieve. I want you to bring that into the arena and have those conversations with other executives. They want to know about things like that. They don't want to know about your product. They can find all that stuff out on their own. But in the absence of meaningful value, you walk and talk just like everybody else and this is the conundrum. Hear me out on this one. This is the conundrum for high relational sellers. They get caught in the friend zone. They get caught in the likability zone because they lean into that because they lack meaningful value. In other words, bringing business substance into the conversation, and they'll always get caught in that.
Right, right. Yeah. And one of the things we know is the person you're talking to is just one cog in the wheel. They're just one person on the buying committee. Most
100%.
most sale, there's tons of other people. So you could have a great relationship with them, but if you're not providing that meaningful value that everybody gets to see, and this is one of the things that I learned from selling from the heart early, was that the value that I thought I brought to my clients wasn't the value that they appreciated.
100%.
Right.
That's a topic of a whole nother
Oh my
conversation, Mr.
God. Yes,
McCormick.
yes. We can have that again. But such good stuff. We're really coming up to the end of our time. We could go on at least another half an hour, but we won't. We'll reschedule. We'll schedule for another time. But just as we're wrapping up, just tell everyone, how can we find and get more Larry Levine?
I'm really not hard to find, but yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. All you got to do is go Larry Levine 1992, get me right. You'll find me on LinkedIn. If you want to find out what we're up to at Selling from the Heart, go to sellingfromtheheart.net. If you would like free copies of my book, just go to sellingfromtheheart.net/books, fill in everything, just pay shipping and handling, and we'll get you the book out. And lastly,
And you can
last
get
but
it with
not
a
least,
can you
and
get it
I'll
with a
sign them,
signature?
right? Just
And they'll sign it?
like Bill McCormick's.
Yeah.
And last but not least, if you want stuff delivered to your smartphone on a consistent basis, whatever your smartphone is, just open your text app, text the word trust to 21,000, and we'll send you all kinds of free goodies.
Wonderful. We will put all that information on a slide and also in the show notes for the podcast. But Larry, always a pleasure to talk to you. I can't wait to do this again. And I know we need to schedule my time on your podcast.
Yep.
But thanks so much. I greatly appreciate it. I love you, my friend, and
Love you
thanks for
too,
being a
Bill.
part of this.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
All right. Cheers.
Take care.